Hi, I'm Arlene McIntyre, Creative Director at Ventura Design, and you're listening to Shut the Front Door, a light-hearted podcast that will bring you through the front door and into the homes of influential and interesting people. Home for me is one of the most important things in my life. My career has fortunately given me the opportunity to work closely with people and to help them create a home they will cherish forever. We are absolutely delighted to have John Fitzpatrick speaking to us today from his home in New York. John is a well-known hotelier and philanthropist and owner of the Fitzpatrick Hotel Group, New York. A native of Dublin, he started off his career working in the family business of hotels in the 70s and 80s. John opened the door of the famous Fitzpatrick Manhattan, a go-to destination for any Irish visiting the city in December 1991, and has called New York home ever since. Giving back is especially important to John, who set up the Eithne and Paddy Memorial Fund in memory of his beloved parents. Millions have been raised since their first event for charities such as Barretstown and Barnados, with the hope of making significant positive impacts for those who really need it. John, it's a pleasure to welcome you to Shut the Front Door. Thank you for joining us.
Arlene, very welcome to be here. Delighted that we are connected.
Thank you for joining us. How are you and how is life treating you in New York? How's life in lockdown?
Well, it's definitely different. I can say we're trying to make the best of it, but I'm just actually sitting in my hotel today. It's Friday evening because we try to have a sales meeting, whatever good it is at the moment, but we try to meet up the gang by Zoom. And so I've just got two of my managers here with me, Shane Cookman and Patrick Layden, and we've had the other 10 or 15 call in. So it's very quiet to walk in to a hotel that is usually bustling, or the two hotels that are usually bustling, and then there's very few in it. I mean, basically, I have the hotel on 57th Street shut down, except for one tenant who's in the penthouse. And then I have Grand Central opened. And we decided to keep one of them open. I think it was just whatever it is, you just want to keep the flag flying. And we also had the Aer Lingus crew staying with us during the time. So we didn't want to kick them out on the street. So we've kept open. And well, now since then, Aer Lingus have now pulled out because they're only flying in for the day and flying back again. So it's very quiet, but we're really trying to also help some of the frontliners. I think to be seen to help some of the doctors and the nurses that are traveling in to help in the situation. So that's mainly the reason why we're open.
Yeah, fantastic. And can you share some of your recent experiences on how COVID-19 has impacted you, like even directly impacted you and your staff in the hotel?
Well, look, it's been tough because some of my employees here have been with me since I opened. So some of them are here with me nearly 30 years. So when it happened, and I don't think any business anywhere in the world envisaged, especially in the hotel business, laying off all your staff. I mean, you might lay off a few during bad times, but when you basically lay off, we have 165 employees and 135 of them were laid off. Now, lucky enough, we were able to bring them back there recently with the CARE Act as a new government program to bring people back to work. So they're all back employed. A lot of them are working from home. But it is strange to see, as I said, I was here for 9/11. And where 9/11 was totally different. It happened. It was a big shock. A lot of deaths as well, but not as many as we're having now here in the city. But we had the rest of the world to kind of, what would I say, support us. And they were, you'd get phone calls and your companies would say, well, we'll be back when it's over. But this is worldwide. Everybody is feeling this. And there's nowhere, you can't make a call to anywhere in the world where it's not affected somewhere. So that's the strangest thing. But I think one of the strangest things is, I'm walking down from my apartment this morning and I'm walking down Park Avenue and I'm literally walking on Park Avenue. There's not a car, there's not a person, there may be a few people out jogging. And so, look, it's beginning to get better. I mean, they say New York is the epicenter of it, which it is, but actually Manhattan itself is less than, say, Queens, the Bronx, or Brooklyn, because everybody's moved out of New York. Anybody that has had homes or anywhere else out on the island or New Jersey, they just moved their whole families and they've moved out. So New York is very quiet and very quiet for a long time.
My goodness. And do you think it'll take a long time to build up the economy to what it was before, previous to this?
I think it will. I think especially in our industry, the travel industry and the hotel industry, people are I think the longer people stay out, I think we're all feeling it ourselves. The more we hide ourselves away, the more, maybe it's the word paranoid we get, and we get worried about going out at all. And we have to be careful because, again, until there's a vaccine, or there's not safe. I mean, you see other states around the country here opening up, and just because they're opening up, I just don't think they get it sometimes because they've opened, but the problem is still there. So if we don't keep our social distancing and we don't be careful, until we get a vaccine, it's a new way of life. And I think our industry is probably going to be very affected for a while. But I do believe it will come back. There's certain people that say, well, we're not traveling again. But then I talk to other people and they say, oh my God, as soon as it's over, I'm traveling. I don't care. It's everywhere anyway. So if it's here, it's there. And I'll be honest with you, we were surprised. We had a couple checked in drove down from Boston last weekend. And we thought, what are they staying for? And we asked them, they said, look, we just had to get out of our house. So they came down in New York. There's nothing open, no
Good for them.
restaurants, no bars, but they just decided they want to change. So I think we all will. It's like when 9/11 happened. I remember being here and saying, God, will we ever get back? And that's the way you feel in the moment. But life does go on. Let's hope we get a vaccine soon. But I think in the meantime, it's all about testing and tracing. We hear it all over the news around the world, but it's the most important thing. And so that if there is a rebound when we open, that we're able to control it.
Exactly. I mean, there might never be a vaccine. We have to also consider that as well. And like, we do have to move on and try and recover in some way and just practice all the social distancing and do the best we can. Things just have to move forward, I guess, in the safest way possible.
Yeah, and I think we just take precautions. As I said, we're already, one of our reasons for our meetings is to set up the new normal. What it is, we're going to have to change and check in. We're looking at all sorts of preventions to help guests feel safe and our employees to feel safe when they're working in an environment. So we're looking at cameras to take your temperature as you walk through the door. We're looking at giving them welcome packs. We call them welcome packs, but basically they are the safety packs at the moment, where a little kit where you're going to get a set of gloves, you're going to get a mask, you're going to get a hand sanitizer, swipes, but also we're going to have to, right through every 30 minutes, we have one of our housemen now cleaning every door handle, every knob, elevator, all these type of things, and electrostat sprayers now for all the rooms, so when guests check in and check out. And we have different ideas, so it's going to be a different type. But as you say, we have to move on. Life has to go on, and it will go on, and we'll get used to it until we get that vaccine.
Do you miss Ireland? I'm sure you're in touch with all your family and friends in Ireland during this time.
It's funny you should say that, because I've never looked at the Irish news so often in my life on my iPad. I could go days without seeing what's going on at home, but for some reason, we all sit over here because we're not connected. And
Mm.
pull up the iPad, and lucky enough, I have this program that I can look at any time. So I can go back and look at the 6 o'clock news to see what's going. And I actually seem to know what's going on more in Ireland than I do over here, because we have a president that I just can't listen to him at night time. No offense, but the rubbish he comes out.
He's hugely entertaining to us all over here, so don't worry about
Ah,
that.
I know. So it's great. The only one I listen to here is the governor of New York, who Cuomo has been brilliant. And then I turn it over and I have to say, Ireland and the government over there. I wish we were in the same position, because you guys are in a really good spot right now, and let's hope it stays that way. But all the right things were done. People say there was mistakes, but this is a once off. Nobody knew how to handle it, and I think the Irish government have handled it very, very well.
Yes, they certainly have. We've been so lucky. And I think, we have to thank Italy a lot for that too. I mean, we learned a lot from them, watching how they handled it. They really, I think, suffered it the worst really at the beginning. And then Spain, and then it really, it came to us. And so we were
Yeah.
watching how they handled it really. But, it's been a real roller coaster for us over here.
Yeah, look, it's just been tough on everybody. And now, yes, I haven't been back. It's the first time in a long time I haven't been back in Ireland since February. And we spoke, the Taoiseach was on Zoom with us all, with the Irish Americans, Irish New York and Americans here the other day. We had just to give us an update on Ireland. And, we all know now if we go back to Ireland, we have to quarantine. So you just can't go back for 2 or 3 days anymore. Aer Lingus are still flying, but you go back now, you got to stay for 14 days. So what's the point going back to be locked up for 14 days and then you got to turn around and come straight back? So it's tough, but I hope to get back in August for a good few weeks so I can do my quarantine and still have some time. And I hear you're having great weather too. You're all very lucky over there.
We are. The sun is shining. We've been blessed. It's been a real mixed blessing, for sure. So, John, I'd love to chat with you, if I may, about your first memories of growing up in Dublin, and if you can share a little of those memories with me, please.
Yeah, I was thinking of that before you called. Well, look, basically, we grew up in Wexford. My father was manager of the Talbot Hotel in Wexford. So for my first, I think until about 8 or 9, I lived in Wexford. So I have only few little memories of that, some good ones as well. But when we moved to Dublin, my father came up then to manage the Doyle hotels. PV Doyle was alive at the time. I went to work for him. So we lived in Killiney and, had a good time there. Went to the local school. My father, when I was in Wexford, he put me through the Christian Brothers. I think he wanted me to come up the tough way. And so when I came up to Dublin, I remember my three brothers and myself, were sent to the Ballybrack National School, which is down the road. And it was a tough school, I can tell you. So we were brought up toughly, because I remember then moving over to, when we finally got into secondary school, to Willow Park and Blackrock, and we thought that was a walk in the park compared to our other schools, because everything was so easy. But it was just, look, my father bought Killiney Castle, and my mother was a huge influence on him. I mean, he eventually left PV Doyle's hotels and decided to buy Killiney Castle, which was a very rundown guest house type at the time, and himself and mum put their heart and soul into it. And I remember as a kid, just the weekends after school, dad never left the hotel, so we lived basically in the hotel. If you weren't in the house, you rode your bike up Killiney Hill. And I think my first job was cutting the grass in Killiney Castle. As I drive through it, even now, all these years later, I still remember. Dad never didn't want anything for nothing, so you had to work for everything. So I used to cut the grass, and then I used to help in the dishwashers on a Saturday night. And because I wasn't old enough to work in the bar, I wanted to work in the bar because I knew I could make tips. So about 16 or 17, he let me wash glasses in the bar. And so finally, a little bit unofficially, I started serving drink when I shouldn't have been. We were probably 17 instead of 18. And so we made a few tips. So it was a great break up. And then went to Blackrock College, had a great schooling. I was very lucky, I have to say. We worked for everything, my father was adamant that we did, but we had a good life. I can't complain. So it was great memories of Killiney, and I still love going back there.
So, what was your own family home like? Can you share the style of that home?
Yeah, it was kind of, it's still there with sentimental reasons. Sometimes you drive by to have just have a look at it, but it was. I'm trying to think. It was kind of an old style Victorian style house, and there was good things and bad things about that house. I have to say, because beautiful house, but I don't know. Years ago, some families, if you had a house, you had the sitting room, you had the study, and the good sitting room, and it was only opened on when people came to visit, and the dining room was another room off it that was a beautiful room, but again was only used for Christmas, Easter, or a family row. If my father wanted a family meeting, he'd bring us in there. So we used to have good memories of it and bad. So I think actually when I built my own house eventually, that's what changed. I'll come to that after, but my design of my new house was always never to have closed doors, that every door was to be used and every room was to be used, so that you used it. But it was great memories. It was a lovely old house on Killiney Hill Road and Merino Avenue, and it was overlooking Killiney Bay. Look, it was a beautiful upbringing, but it was, and we used to run down the back of the garden and run down the road to the train and pick up the train to get into Blackrock. And so good memories of it. And it's great to see that Killiney hasn't changed.
Yeah.
It's still the same. They can't be built anywhere. It's, I end up eventually buying one of the apartments down in the Killiney Court, which is only down the road from the house in Stone Throw. But I think Killiney is just one of the nicest places to live. It's like a lot
Yeah.
of places in Ireland. I think Ireland as a whole has some gorgeous places. And, if you're getting the weather you're getting at the moment, we'd always say there's no better place than Ireland when the weather is good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when did you first start traveling? When did you decide to go to New York?
Well, when I was training under my father, I finally left BlackRock and went straight into the business. So I trained through a management course, and I did every department from the kitchens to the restaurants all the way up. And father always said to us too, you can't ask someone to do something you haven't done yourself. So every single department. But then as I finished it, I realized, look, I had no really university training or technical training. So he sent me then to, would you believe, UNLV in Las Vegas, the hotel school in Las Vegas.
Wow.
And I always wonder why he sent me there, because it was Cornell, there was all these other schools, but he had a connection in Vegas because my father also was a general sales agent for TWA, the airlines at the time, and had a
Yeah.
contact there. So he could send me there and stay with those people. And it was a brilliant hotel school. It was fantastic. They had a hotel now on campus. But I only realized years and years later why Vegas was probably one of the reasons Dad wanted me to go there, was because Dad used to love to go to gamble.
Right.
So I remember when I was sent there, feeling very homesick, and about 2 months after he was traveling, I was so excited to see him, and I met him at the airport and brought him. He used to stay in the Dunes Hotel, which is now the Mirage, and I was so excited having dinner. We were meeting for dinner early, and I'd say, "Why is that?" He says, "Because you're going home, because I'm gambling." So he came for 3 days. I think I only saw him one of the days out of it, but it was a
Your excuse.
but it was a great experience, because if you think of it, at the time the connection was the TWA connection, but this owner of or the guy in TWA, John Sweeney, was very friendly with the review of all the shows that were on in Vegas, the Las Vegas Sun.
Mhm.
So the guy who reviewed all the entertaining shows. And would you believe, due to that, then we ended up having Sammy Davis in our class. We had Liberace in our class. We
Fantastic.
had because the teacher was the reviewer of all the shows was also a professor in the university, and he used to say to the guys, if you want a good review, you better come in and see my students. So we had Sammy Davis Jr. sitting with 10 of us in a class one day and sitting up on the desk with us talking. So there's some great memories of that. So that's what happened. So I came back and worked in Killiney and ran general manager of Killiney. And then I felt I wanted to work for somebody else besides my father. So I ended up in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for a great guy, an Irish American guy called Joe English, who had a Holiday Inn in Chicago. So I worked for him for a year. But then Dad called me and he said, "You're getting too fond of this. Get home, and I need you back here." So I came back, and then we had the Killiney Castle, we had the Shannon Shamrock, and we had the Silver Springs in Cork. So and then my other brother Paul came up along the way, and my sister was there as sales and marketing director. So that's how I got back. But then I had the taste of America, and I loved it,
Mm.
and I just wanted to get back. And my father always had this dream. Everyone thought he was a bit crazy, but he said, there's no Irish hotels, no Irish hotels in New York, in the United States. He said there's Irish bars, there's Irish restaurants, there's no. So that was his goal to do it, and I wanted to come back here. So it took a few years to get there, but we finally ended up in New York, and that's in 1990 we moved in.
Excellent. And do you find that business is done differently in New York than in Dublin? Are there any comparisons or differences that stand out to you?
Well, at the time, definitely it was, because
Mm.
I remember when I came here, it wasn't so much about running hotels, it was about making contacts. And, in Ireland, we're so sociable and it's such small, we can all meet each other. You can't go into town to dinner without bumping into anyone. But when I came to New York, I got a bit of a fright because, first of all, nobody knew who Fitzpatricks were.
Hmm.
Uh, we were a small fish in a very large pond. And, when you went to do sales calls, you'd say Fitzpatrick Hotels, and the Americans wouldn't know what the hell that was. They were calling me Fitzgerald. They never even could get the name right.
Mm-hmm.
And because they were so used to the brands like Hilton, Sheraton, Marriott,
Sure.
they all thought, and so that's what they were thinking. But we used to have to go out and basically knock on doors and get them in. And I think what made us different was that we're boutique, and the Americans may have these large hotels, but one thing they don't have is the service. I really find a lot of hotels. I used to see it here over the years, where some of the managers of big hotels, their offices would be, say, up on the fifth floor, what they call the executive floor,
Mm-hmm.
and they tend to manage from their desk. Where Irish is we're a part of Europe, and the European type of hotels is personal service. And since the day I opened, no matter which hotel, either the one in Manhattan, even the one we had in Chicago or Grand Central, I insisted that the GM's office was off the lobby, because when they got up out of their desk, they may be thinking of 100 things that they may have to do, but they had to walk through the lobby to get to
Yeah,
wherever they wanted to go.
very
And that
true.
was my feeling. You got to think. And my father had another great saying too, was just remember, no matter how many hotels you do have or will have, he said, you're an innkeeper, and
Yeah,
don't forget that.
that's
So
so true.
so that's where it is. So that's how I got back to the States, and I loved it. I mean, I love America's great, and it's tough to do business in, no doubt
Mm-hmm.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's when you do get there, business comes in much quicker than, because of the mass of people. I mean, it's just New York is something like 7 million people,
Yeah.
so that's an advantage and a disadvantage, because there's so many hotels as well, and you have to make yourself different. And how do you do it? And I think what our success all along was the Irish, who really supported us when we first came here. I mean, if you think, I was only open a few months, and Albert Reynolds was the Taoiseach at the
Mm-hmm.
time,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember their office ring me, say we want to try it. But the first person that stayed with me, I have to be say, from the government side, was Mary Robinson. And Mary Robinson had heard that there was an Irish hotel
Fantastic.
opened, and I remember her office calling, because in those days they used to all say in the Waldorf, all the
Yeah.
politicians from all around, everyone to Waldorf was the place. And Mary Robinson stayed with me, and then it was Albert Reynolds, and then Mary McAleese, and then all to this day, the Irish government and thing are just very supportive. And I know they'll say it themselves, one or two may go somewhere else because they may want to, but it's not that they have to stay here. They stay here because they want to, and that's what's great for us. And we love having them. I mean, especially for our staff, to see the Irish Taoiseach or the Taoiseach or the President or any minister come, it just sets. They all get excited, because a lot of my
Absolutely.
staff are Irish, and they love looking after them. So it's a kind of a family affair.
Absolutely. I mean, your hotel is iconic with anyone who visits New York from Ireland. Um, so,
Yeah, we had one of our best ones. I'll tell you, if you don't mind. What the best is
yeah.
one we had. I was only open a few months, and again, the Irish were surrounding me here too. Neil O'Dowd from the Irish Voice in Irish America, but they called me one day and they said, "Look, we want to put someone which is a very famous person. Got to keep it quiet." And it was Gregory Peck. So, uh,
Wow.
and but the only condition Gregory Peck had was that he needed his own private line in his room. And I said, well, every room has a telephone. I said, for God's sake, we're not that bad. And they said, no, he wants his own private number. Now, at that stage, I was living in the penthouse up above.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, fine, I'm going to move out and give Gregory Peck my penthouse. But I then realized that I was still using the hotel switchboard, but down 17 floors below me was my office. And I had a phone with a direct number on it. So I remember going around to Radio Shack, and we just needed to have Gregory Peck stay with us, so I'd do anything. And I counted 17 stores, 10 feet of floor, so I need something like 70 feet of wire. I remember going out to buying all these telephone connections, and I opened the penthouse window, threw them down the courtyard into my office, and brought my phone up and connected. So I remember ringing my friends that day and saying, listen, don't call my number for the next 3 days. And they said, why? I said, because Gregory Peck may pick it up. So that's one of the great stories. I remember when we opened we gave him my phone up the side of the building, and he stayed with
Fantastic.
us. Yeah, so it was some great memories.
I know, and so many Irish really consider your hotel home away from home. It's definitely a real meeting point.
Yeah, I mean, we put it in this. I think the World Cup in the early days. I had Mick McCarthy staying with me there a few months ago, and I say weeks ago now because we're a few months into this now.
Mm.
But a few months ago, and he reminded of the World Cup, and I think it was 19, whatever when we were playing Italy, whatever date it was. And I remember Albert Reynolds was here at the time, and it was just great to see. That's really kicked us off because people, even if they weren't staying with us because they couldn't get in because we're packed out, they'd come up and they'd sit in the bar and they'd say, "Geez, your man, that's your man from Cork, that's your man from Limerick." I mean, people to this day still come into our bar and they bump into people that they haven't seen in years because it's just, I
Yeah.
mean, it's kind of a centre.
Yeah,
It is a home, you know. So we're very lucky that we have that support.
for sure. What hotel has inspired you the most, like in all of your travels worldwide?
Oh my God, there's so many different hotels, but you know, and they change all the time. I have to
Hmm.
say, one of my favorite hotels at the moment is in London, and it's called the Corinthian.
Oh yeah, fab. Mhm.
That is just, I
Mm,
mean, that's a hotelier's dream because you
mm.
know it was the money came from such big funders that you know they build hotels and it's a hotelier's dream because it's something you can't do. You can't make money out of it because the amount of money that went into it, you'd never get it back. But if you had that type of money, you just and it was like a trophy
Yeah.
hotel. It's one. It's just one, and the service and everything is great. But around Ireland now, I've been to Ashford, I've been down to Adair,
Mm,
Dromoland, and all. I mean, I think one of my favorite places, I have to admit, when I sneak away is Dromoland. I don't
yeah.
know why people, but maybe it's because we had a hotel very close to it as well, the Shannon Shamrock
Hmm.
in Bunratty. But I was actually just on to Mark Nolan from Dromoland, seeing how he was the other day. But it's my little hideaway. You know what I mean? I think it's a
Hmm.
great part of Ireland to get away to.
Definitely. And tell me a little bit about where you live in Manhattan. Do you live in Manhattan, or is it,
I
or?
do. I have well a very small apartment right on Central Park South because I spend that time from Monday to Friday here. It's I was very lucky to get one of the apartments in the plaza.
Mm,
When they
wow.
converted it to a hotel, but a very small apartment. But I have a house out in Sag Harbor, and that's my escape.
Mm,
And it's a house I built from the ground up. It
okay.
was uh, an empty site very close to the water, and that's when I kind of put my idea into a house that I wanted to build, and where you know I built it with a separate sitting room, dining room, and everything, but no doors. And that went back to my previous story about our lovely house in Killiney. I just felt we never lived in it. It was,
Mm,
you know, certain rooms weren't allowed to go into. So my house now is very open. I want everybody to come in to walk through, and they kind of walk in through the door down into a sitting room. To the left is the study, to the right's the kitchen,
mhm.
and every room and the dining room, every room is opened, and where people can feel you know, you just enjoy a house. You've got a
Yeah,
house,
the
you've got to
feeling of
enjoy it.
space. Yeah, sure.
You know? And I kind of probably will do a lot of the interior design myself because
Hmm.
I learned that, would you believe, from my mother way back when we were doing Killiney
Hmm.
Castle. My father was great at construction, but when it came to color schemes and things like that, he had no idea. And mum was very good. And so I used to follow my mum around when she was doing renovations. And I learned a lot of it. Now I do need help, so I do bring interior designers because I have an idea, but I need some guidance.
Yeah.
But I like to have a huge input into it myself. You know,
Hmm. Hmm. You have a good eye for it, so you really you know how it should look.
I have. I had a I just did a house. I bought a house now in Ireland 3 years ago now in Ashford in County Wicklow, and a beautiful. It was a house that was built but never lived in. Once I get going, I just need a bit of help. I need help, but once I get it, then I can go. And I'm
Exactly. You're a busy guy. You just need you know what you want. You just need someone to help you execute it, probably, for you.
I do, and I don't have anyone particular that I use more. It's just whoever I feel that I can, you know,
Yeah.
that's come at the time, and I do need the help. But I'm very happy with that now. It's overlooking Wicklow Head, and it's my
Mm.
escape when I get back to Ireland. So I love it.
And where's your favorite place in your home in New York? Where do you like to do you spend a lot of time in your own place there, or do you like kind of getting up and about?
Yeah, well, I'm very lucky to get out to Long Island to the Stag Harbor. So I spend a
Mhm.
lot of my weekends if I can. You know, people say to me, "John, why don't you travel? You don't go to the south of France. You don't go here. You don't go there." I said, "No." I said, "Where? Why would I go?" It's for those who have been in the Hamptons. It's like the south of France,
Yeah.
except everybody speaks English, and you're only 2 hours from work. I'm a bit of a workaholic, so I don't like being too far away. from my business. So I can drive in 2 hours, and I can be out beside the beach, and I can be back here. And it's a nice winter house as well. I designed it in such a way that it's a great study. I have a great study with an open fireplace, and I also have an office in both my houses. I have offices, and they're a dedicated office, so that I can work
Fantastic.
from there. And so there's no if my favorite room. I presume the sunroom, probably in the house in the Sag Harbor. And I know it sounds corny, but my favorite room in my house in Ireland is my office, because it's up on a tower.
Oh,
The way the
wow.
house was built, it's got a separate tower, and it looks right. It's a circular tower. It's just lovely, and the windows are all. And I look over as I sit there. I look out over Wicklow Head, so
Mm.
and the Irish Sea. So I don't think. And I could be up there 1 o'clock in the morning, and someone says you're still working. I just feel like it's a bit of heaven. It's lovely.
Fantastic. And John, how does social media fit into your life and business?
Well, it's becoming very important now over the last few years. And would I be up to the speed of the younger salespeople on my team? No, but I'm very close to them. But it's something that it's you can't do business without it. It just has to. I mean, I only was giving out the other day about Instagram to my salespeople that our Instagram was so bad that we only had so many hits on it, and I said, so it has to be that. And you see, it's where people are. It's sad in one way. If you go out for dinner now, you just look around the room, and every table you see even couples,
I know.
yeah, married couples, and all they're doing is they're looking at their phones. So
I know.
there is a bit of disadvantage, but that it's instant. It's instant, and that's what you have to, be really worried about, and be on top of.
Yeah, it's huge. It's rocking the business at the moment, really, isn't it? Do you spend Christmas in New York or do you come back to Ireland?
Sometimes I spend it in New York, but the last few years since I had the house in Ireland, now I go back and try to get back for arrive Christmas Eve if I can get back in time to spend, because
Fantastic.
my brothers and sisters are all there, and they all live within a few miles of each other.
Mm.
So it's great to get back to see, and the nieces and nephews and everything.
Do you ever see yourself coming back to Ireland or is New York your forever home now?
You know, People say when I'm going home, I still say Ireland because Ireland is home. But it's frightening to think that I spent nearly 30 years here. So, just about half my life I'm here, but I still think Ireland is home. So, yeah, I'd like to come home sometime, but I don't think I could come home in the near future. I, I'm kind of need to stay busy. New York is such a vibrant city. And let's be honest, in this day and age, you can jump on a flight. I can be on a, I could leave my office here or my house here and be home in a few hours. I mean, this flight that leaves at 5:40. That's the usual flight I take from JFK, and I arrive in Dublin at 4 a.m. I can, so it's so quick nowadays.
Yeah,
It is, and there's so many flights,
that's so
so so I love it's easy to go back. I'm actually thinking how I'm going to get back now the next time because I haven't been back since February.
oh, that's crazy. Hopefully you'll get back soon. Giving back is extremely important to you, John, and you've helped countless charities and people over the years. Is that a value from your childhood?
It's funny. It really happened when I arrived in the States, because the Americans are really, and it's not that the Irish aren't generous. The Irish are hugely generous,
Hmm.
but it was never kind of brought in when you're growing up. But when I moved to the States, though, there was so many organizations, especially being Irish. There would be so many Irish American organizations that would be trying to help people back home, and that's how I got involved. And I think one of the first few dinners or events I ever went to was the Ireland Funds, and that's how I got involved with the Ireland Funds. But it's kind of embedded in you. And I think when you live away from home, and then if you can't afford to be give back, I think it's important that we do. It gives you great satisfaction. I'll be honest with you. So I used to kind of tip away the bits and pieces. But I think it was when my mother passed away very suddenly
Mm.
that I just felt, wow. I've probably set up the Eithne and Paddy Fitzpatrick Memorial Fund probably a bit selfishly in a way, because Mum died so suddenly that um, I felt that she'd be forgotten. So it was more of
Mm.
a personal thing. And I felt Dad was so successful, but nobody realized how much Mum was behind him and helped him.
Sure.
So I said, they're all going to forget about her. So that's the reason why I set it up first. And then when I got it set it up, then I started. I mean, I think the first event was a golf tournament I did, and poor Brendan Grace, the late Brendan Grace, came out and did the entertaining for me. And I had this big Chicago union guy there, a guy called Eddie Hanley, Irish American, who was very, very helpful to me in my early days when I had to deal with certain organizations. But I remember him sitting there, and at the end of the dinner, I remember saying, how much did you raise? And I only had raised 10,000 that night. And he said, if you tell Brendan to go back up on the stage and do Father the Bride, he said that joke. He said, I'll match it. So that was a big deal. I said, Brendan, get up on that goddamn stage and just do it, because everybody loved Brendan Grace. So
Oh, yeah.
that started it. Would you believe 24 years later, we were meant to have our event last week. It was the first time in 24 years we had to cancel it for this year. But last year we raised over 400,000 that day. So it's come huge. We've raised over, it's really got taken off in the last 10 years. And I have to thank a lot of the celebrities and friends from Ireland who come over. Ronan Collins comes over every year, has been with me every single year, bar one, to do the MC for me, and just being a master of everything for me for that weekend. Mick McCarthy was with me last week. Robbie Keane came out last year. Liam Neeson lives over here.
Wow.
Yeah, Liam and myself are actually talking to each other by text. He's up in his house in upstate New York at the moment,
Wow, really?
quarantine, and I'm at my house in the Hamptons. And it's around 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, maybe once or twice a week. He must get bored and I must get bored because what's going on, he says. And I think both of us are just can't stand this quarantine, because, he would be traveling all over the world making movies, so, but it's, so the golf tournament, they've all helped. And we've Barnados, Coromila, a reconciliation centre in Ballycastle in County Antrim is another one. And I do a lot of stuff up the north, because I feel that's where, we've got to still keep focus on. It's, we've come a long way, but we're not there yet. And I think we need to, and that's why I say to the Irish Americans here, we have to keep our eye on Ireland. So, and that's how it started. So that's where I am. And then the Ireland Fund, I got more involved with the Ireland Fund. And this is a huge organization, worldwide organization. I'm no longer chairman. I was chairman for 2 terms, but we've got a great chairman now, G. McQuaid from Citibank, and Katrina Fortel is running it there. So we are very happy that it's going well as well. And it's great to see so many Irish Americans wanting to support Ireland and being able to support Ireland,
Absolutely. I mean, just to take you back very quickly to when 9/11 happened, I mean, that was just an absolutely massive event in your city, in Manhattan. Can you share a little bit about that experience with me?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was the worst experience of my life, I have to say. But I tell you what we're going through now, it'll be another story. But I do remember that morning. I remember leaving my apartment about 10 minutes to 9, because it was about a 10-minute walk to the hotel. And I don't know what happened. I stopped along the way for something. And I remember getting a phone call from my PA at the time. And she said, "You okay?" Because I hadn't shown up on time. And she said, "What are you talking about?" Would you believe, I think certain people around the world knew more about it than I did, because it happened downtown and we're uptown. But when I got into the hotel, and I remember just walking into the hotel and going into the bar, and all my residents were just sitting at the bar and just their eyes to the table. And I'm looking at it, I thought I was looking at a movie. I really didn't. It took me the shock of it. So when it finally settled in, that was about 20 past 9, and, about 10 o'clock, the second plane had already gone in, and we just didn't know what was going to happen. And by 11 o'clock, you could just see, it was like ants, people coming up Lexington Avenue. They were all walking up from Wall Street and covered in dust. And I was going, where are they walking to? And I remember following the crowd up to 59th Street and making a right, and realized they were going for the 59th Street Bridge just to get off the island. So I remember that morning very well, and then tried to look after people as they came in. And besides our guests, we had people that lived in Connecticut. I remember was one gentleman came in, and he ended up staying the night with us, and his wife rang the following day to pick, or I think he stayed with me 2 nights because he couldn't get out. And I remember the wife coming to me months later and saying, "Thanks for looking after him." But there was so many people we couldn't remember that day. It was just horrific. And just really was bad. But, the days went on, the city closed down, and
Hmm.
I just remember meeting a lot of my friends who had lost a lot of people downtown. It was a very sad time as well. So, but on the positive side, we did come back. It took a while, and they travelled again. And 2 years later, you look back on it, you couldn't believe you thought you wouldn't come back. So it's times like
Yeah,
now you kind of say to yourself, well, are we are we going to come out of this? But we will absolutely come out of it. We'll come out stronger and better, and it'll take longer. But I think it's the whole world is affected, so we're all working together on it. So yeah, it's 9/11 was tough, but it kind of made the New Yorkers too a little bit more softer, if you know what I mean.
yeah,
New York is kind of a tough city, and you could walk by people and they wouldn't even say hello to you. And I remember coming from Ireland at first, and you'd never pass the street with saying hello to someone, even if you didn't know them. But here, they'd walk right by you if you didn't exist.
yeah.
So it made people, New Yorkers, more friendly. I definitely did, and it stayed that way. It never changed. Like at the moment, it's everybody is stopping, even talking to each other on the street, and people just want contact. It's just human nature. They want contact, and they don't want to be isolated.
That's true. That's true. Well, no doubt you'll get through this, John. If you've survived 9/11, you'll definitely survive the COVID crisis.
Yeah, well, we're getting ready to it already, and I think
Yeah.
I think people will travel. I think there'll be a few months that they'll wait, but human nature is people want to travel, and
Hmm.
as long as you take the precautions and everything, we should all be okay. And let's hope the vaccine comes sooner than later.
Exactly. And my final question for you, John, is if you had one piece of advice to give to anyone that wanted to get into the hotel business, what would that be?
That's a good question. Well, it's changed a lot now. I'll be honest with you. In the early days, hotel business was one of the toughest business to be in because you had to work morning, noon, and night. It's a lot easier now. But I would say you have to be passionate about it. And I think that's with any you know your careers. If you're not passionate about it, yes, you're not going to succeed because hotel business, you're dealing with the public, you're dealing with a lot of lot of different things that from somebody walking to a hotel, it looks very glamorous, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of work to be done. So I think passion is number one, and love to meet people. If you don't like meeting people and circulating with people, then you're in the wrong business because this is something that's not a 9 to 5, and it doesn't switch off when you walk out the door. I walk out the door every night knowing about checking the phone till I go to sleep because you don't know who's going to call you. You're waiting for a call from one of the hotels or something. So you're always on. But if you love what you do, you'll have no problem. And I love it today as much as I loved when I first started.
Excellent. Yeah, it's not easy. You've got to put in the graft.
Absolutely. And also, as I said, you might have to like meeting people. There's times that I'd be sitting in the office and then I'd have to go to a dinner and I'm going, oh my God, I got to go to this dinner tonight. And But once you walk into that room, I feel I kind of switch. Some switch just switches on,
Hmm.
and I go into a different mode, and I could be there all night, and that's what you have to have. You got to have the love for it and the passion.
Love it. Fantastic. Well, John, I hope to pop into you the next time I'm in the Big Apple.
Well, I hope you do, and at least the first drink's on us. And someone else said it to me too. I can't wait to get back to your bar. I think that's the
I've
hardest
been
thing.
in that bar. It's a dangerous bar, John.
Listen, Fisher, you know what? You're no safer place to be.
Absolutely. Can I just quickly ask you a really quick fire questions, just real quick? It's just part of the segment, and there's
Sure.
one or the other. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Great. Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Bath or shower?
Shower.
Morning or night?
Night.
Text or talk?
Text.
Hamptons or the city?
Oh my God. That's a hard one. So okay, I'd have to say the Hamptons.
Red or white wine?
White.
Taxi or walk?
Walk.
Eat in or take out?
Take out.
Ireland or New York City?
Oh God. Ireland, I think, at the moment. Maybe it's the way I'm feeling.
And my last one.
No. Sorry. We know New York. I'd have to say New York. Yeah, it's New York.
Okay. And my last one. Boris Johnson or Donald Trump?
Oh my God. As much as I hate to say Boris before Trump, not anything be rather than Trump.
John, thank you so much for chatting with me today, and I wish you every success.